authentic to the fact that we live in this. We live in a fragmenting, decaying society. We live in a society of a great deal of degeneracy. We live in a society in which the fundamental moral norms are liberal. And we are attempting to fight our way out of them. And sometimes that's going to involve using the means that are at hand. That's going to involve being a part of this fragmenting group. That's going to involve dank memes. It's going to involve Pepe. It's going to involve unleashing a little chaos. But that is being authentic to the current year. That's being authentic to the time. In terms of Trump, I'll be very brief. I'm probably gone. That's all right. It's my conference. In terms of Trump, I think there is a bit of a myth that Trump invented the alt-right or something. Well, there's a very stupid myth that put forth by Hillary Clinton that the godfather of the alt-right is Vladimir Putin. I was thinking, he's our godfather. I don't know if he is funding us, but if he's our godfather, I guess we should pay him. So I don't know. Anyway, that is rather dumb. But there's also a notion that this just was invented by the Trump movement. That is false. The alt-right was not invented by the Trump movement. I think that what we see in Trump is it's to a degree about policy. The fact that Trump, from day one, defined his campaign in terms of immigration, I think that was key and extremely important. But I don't think our support of Trump is really about policy at the end of the day. I think it actually, you could say it's about style over substance. Because, policy, what does that really matter? I think it's really about Trump's style, the fact that he doesn't back down, the fact that he's willing to confront his enemies, mostly on the left. There's something about him, there's something high energy that is...
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you something, people. I have a new sponsor. It's a great little sponsor, and it may help you people out. You should have got it for the 3-day weekend, because my new company is called a Blowfish for Hangovers. And Blowfish for Hangovers, you can get it at CVS, you can get it at Walgreens, or you can go to their website, which is 4hangovers.com, and use the promo code Cooper, my last name, and you get 20% off. And this stuff is really good. I know Joanne has used it, my girlfriend, and it's very effervescent. It's a morning after hangover remedy. And what's good about it is it's a formulation recognized by the FDA as effective in the treatment of hangovers. And it's not the herbal BS. This is real medicine. It's pain reliever to get you feeling great, caffeine to get you back in the game. It's got refreshing lemon flavor. It's fast acting. So go check out 4 Hangovers and get your Blowfish for Hangovers. Anyway, we have a wonderful show. My guest, she does a little bit of everything. I got to tell you, she's somewhat a Renaissance woman between her music and her children's stuff and her glass company. And my guest is Lisa Loeb. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. How did you spend your Labor Day weekend? Because you have a family and seems like you're always busy. So what do you do to relax? Did you relax this weekend?
Well, I had to, because I actually was under the weather. I had a low-grade fever and terrible cough and cold all towards the end of last week and over the weekend. So I was trying to get over that. And then yesterday, when I was finally seeing a little bit of health coming through, we went and checked out some mattresses. And we did a few small errands, and we went out and did a few small errands and got some ice cream, and then I tried to rest some more because my kids had school this morning really early, so it wasn't a typical weekend of all the different activities we might do, because unfortunately I was under the weather.
That's that mattress shopping. It's funny. It was my girlfriend's birthday this weekend, and she turned the big 50, and we went to Santa Barbara, and we had a bed and breakfast, and it had a king size, and she's like, we got to upgrade. And I said, but mattress shopping's just a pain. So
it's really interesting. I make a lot of music for kids, and at a big event that I did in Los Angeles, I was walking around looking at all the different booths at this big SoCal Moms event, and one of them had this beautiful, comfortable-looking bed. It was a Naturepedic bed, and we need to get a new mattress for my daughter and a couple of other things in the house. And I talked to the guy, and he's going to give me an awesome deal, but we had to go to the store to check out the mattresses, and it was very confusing. It's like you're checking out a firm bed with a soft top, or a firm bed with a medium top, or a medium bed with a soft top, or a soft top with like there's so many variables, and it's something you're going to live with for a really long time, especially these new beds. They used to talk about how you have to replace your bed after a certain amount of time because it gets moldy or dusty or whatever. But these new beds are made in a different way, especially the latex ones, and they can last forever. So it's a long decision, and you want, it's a little bit boring, but a little bit exciting at the same time, thinking like, okay, well, what's this bed for? Well, the bed's for my daughter when she's 6, but it's also going to be when she's 18, and it's also going to be for grandparents visiting. And then what's going to happen next? And you have to like look into the future, all while you're trying to try out a bed. And it is very overwhelming, I will say. And then go home and compare it to what you have at home to say like, well, this is what we're comfortable on. Wait, was that the same? Did that feel the same as the one that we were like? I don't.
It's like a process. It's unbelievable. It used to be so easy. Like when I was little.
Everything is a process. Yeah. Seriously, everything. It's like you're getting ripped off when you go online to buy something. You always feel like you need a coupon or there's a problem.
It's true.
Why can't you just go to a store and buy something? You can't. You think, oh my gosh, well, if I don't get a 20% off discount or 30% off discount or 30 off the 20 and the extra $5, then I'm being screwed. So it's wonderful, all these great discounts we get, but it can just freak you out.
Now, I want to ask you about you, and I'm glad you're getting a mattress. That's cool, because that's important. Yeah. But now when did you start playing music? As a kid, I think you played piano first, or how did your whole music progression start?
Yeah, music was always a really important part of my family. My dad was a doctor, and my mom raised 4 kids, 4 of us, and music was always just a big part of our household. It was an expected part of our culture and values that you would take piano lessons and other lessons. And also the school, I went to an all-girls school in Dallas called Hockaday, the Hockaday School. And it was a school that had so much music education. We learned about opera in 3rd grade and 2nd grade. We'd have plays that we put on and musicals. And in the same time, I had dance. I was a big dancer when I was growing up, but I had a lot of dance and took 2 piano lessons a week. That was just what we did. We took a private lesson and a group lesson for theory. And so I took piano. My older brother is a classical pianist, and he really, I think realizing that wasn't my thing, seeing my brother do it so well, he was competing and everything. I enjoyed piano, but I think being a sort of more of a private person, and piano is pretty loud when you're practicing in the middle of the house. And B, just I loved rock music and pop music and songs from the 70s and rock songs, bands like the Police. At a certain point, I had to switch to guitar. It just felt more social. It felt a little more private when I was in my room quietly playing acoustic guitar or electric guitar. I did pretty immediately start performing live my own songs or playing with bands, but there's just something that felt a little bit less, I don't know, out in the open, and I really enjoyed it, even though I did start performing really early on, mostly at summer camp. And then that translated into my regular life when I went back to school, playing at assemblies. And, it's just a way where people would gather around and play music, and it was really fun. Or I got to share a new song, and there was something amazing about connecting with other people that way. And it carried on all the way through college, where from the minute I got to college, my freshman roommate and I started a band. And we became very popular on campus, sold our music to other students on campus, wanted to buy our cassette tapes, and we performed both at our university, Brown University, and we started traveling to New York City to play, or Los Angeles, Dallas, different places. And it just sort of was a natural progression.
What kind of songs were you writing at that age? Because it is a young age, and I always say, we go through so many cycles in life, and I always say when I was in college, you're still a sort of a punk. I'm not, you're 22, you do
right.
But so what were your songs? Where were you finding? Where were you finding
the songs were really the seeds of what I do now today. Even one of the songs that was on the radio after college, a song called "Do You Sleep," I wrote that while I was in college. Like I always wrote lyric-centered words, somewhat mysterious or abstract, because I loved sort of poetic, abstract feeling of music, like David Bowie's early music, where sometimes you didn't know exactly what he was talking about. The Cure, the Police. Sometimes the messages were more straightforward. Some of them were more about how you feel when you listen to the whole production of the thing. So from very early on, I wrote songs like that. I remember when I really started sharing music with other people, I was like after I'd been doing it for a couple of years, I was at summer acting school in London with a bunch of people from the East Coast. I was from Texas, and I remember after the fact, my friend Jenny Weiner sent me a letter and said, "Oh my God, you have to hear this girl named Suzanne Vega. You sound just like her." And I had no idea who she was talking about. And I heard Suzanne Vega's first record, and I thought, "Oh my God, I do." Even though I don't have that kind of New York accent, I had that quiet voice and complicated chords and different lyrics, and I thought, "Oh my God, that's so weird." I couldn't believe it. Also, because I felt a lot more influenced. I know deep inside my bones I'm influenced by the soft pop of the 70s and all those melodic songs by Bread and the Bee Gees and, everything from disco, like Bad Girls to Kenny Rogers or Olivia Newton-John. But then after that I was heavily influenced by Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and then more alternative rock bands like The Cure and David Bowie and The Police and punk bands and alternative bands. But it's just in my bones. I don't know. It's what I was doing back then. Really, if you listen to what I did back then, it's very much the seeds of what I was doing now as a singer-songwriter, although more like a singer-songwriter from a band than the James Taylor tradition. I knew the best of James Taylor, but I didn't really know a lot of like Jackson Browne or Carole King, that kind of stuff. I didn't know other than what was on the radio.
Right.
I wasn't sort of steeped in that singer-songwriter tradition. It was more of the soft pop of the 70s and the rock bands that I was listening to, all the rock bands that I listened to. And I was a big music person. I was a DJ in high school, and I had a radio show, and I collected just hundreds and hundreds of records and was always looking for the next big thing and my favorite classics and all different kinds of music to share with people on the air.
What was your radio show called? And where did you find the music? Did you just...
Well, it was at the boys' school. It was 88.5. It was on the FM dial. And I was the program director by the third year that I was there. And they had a crate of records, a couple of crates of records we were supposed to choose from. I think I took the radio station a lot more seriously than the teacher who was in charge of the radio station. And I was one of the only girls over there who stuck around, but I called mine Everything You Always Wanted to Listen to But Didn't Buy, or something like that, because I would play, I usually completely strayed from what was in the radio station, other than songs. Every once in a while I'd play a group of songs from a soundtrack that they had in there, just so that I could, it's an old classic trick, you have to go use the restroom, so you put on 3 in a row from some soundtrack. But I played everything. I played such a variety. I played local punk bands. From Dallas. I played all deep tracks from The Cure and some of my old favorites from the Beatles or a Led Zeppelin song, and then I'd play the Go-Go's or maybe play a Burt Bacharach song or a song from a musical or sound effects of a man falling down the stairs. It's kind of like Dr. Demento meets. I talked a lot on the radio, just like I do when I play concerts today, but I did contests. I was friendly with local music stores in town and people who worked for record companies who were like the local reps, and I would get advance copies of new releases, bands on IRS records and stuff like that. So it really ran the gamut, but to me it was like everything that you don't have, and I was sort of trying to share with other people who might not have that kind of broad interest.
It's funny, the 80s was such a great time for music, and I'm glad I was enjoying these at the time, because we had so much stuff. As you said, you had the 70s and the 60s and the classic rock, and you could sit there and you could flip around your dials and you could always hear a song you liked. To be like, once you had the 5 little buttons to switch from,
exactly.
Philadelphia was WMMR and YSP, so you hit them too, and YSP's more classic rock, and that's what you listen to, and it was great. And I always feel bad. I don't feel bad for the kids now. Look at me, I'm so old. The kids, I just think music was so much more developed, and we just had so many different options back then.
Well, I actually feel the opposite. I feel like kids have so many. I feel like we had less portals to listen to music. Like in Dallas, we had one alternative radio station. I know a lot of friends who lived on the East Coast, like in New York or Los Angeles, people always heard whatever the new up and coming thing was. Like I didn't even have MTV, so I didn't get 120 minutes. I would go to a friend's house to look at that. But it felt like, I thought I was the only one who knew about the Police. Now, when I went to go see the Police on tour, I didn't realize, wow, they were like a mainstream band. I thought they were kind of alternative, but they were actually super mainstream, just like a lot of other bands I thought were very alternative. But it's because there were less places for us to find music. And if you did go to the handful of really mom and pop record stores, you could find something really interesting and different. Now I feel like it's a barrage of music constantly. I mean, my husband works in music at a TV station, and so he gets everything, because everybody wants to go on TV. So everything gets sent to the TV station, and there's just so many bands out there. And now you don't have to, go to a studio and record yourself. You can make a decent recording on your computer. I could make one right now on my cell phone. But it used to be a much more of a project to sit and write a song and record a song. You most likely, unless you had some tech head in your house who had a studio at your house, which is very unusual, you had to finish writing a song. You had to craft and write a song before you sat and recorded it. Now, there were people who might have been really familiar with their keyboard and were able to program things, but you kind of had to have much larger commitment on the whole to make music and record it than you do today. Now, sometimes people are lucky, or they just make up ideas quickly and they're able to put things together really well, without having to craft them in that same exact way. But there's just so much out there. Like, I don't even know exactly what's going on. There's always something new. I go on Spotify to find one thing, and there are more suggestions that I've never heard of than I can even count. It's unbelievable.
Right. Now, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Now, well, with your career, okay, so you were playing coffee shops were you still living in Boston, or up in that area, because you went to Brown? But when did you start?
I was in Providence. I started playing concerts when I was in high school, down in Dallas. I'd play in Deep Ellum. I got to open for the New Bohemians, who had come out of Dallas, and I was just playing a lot then. And then in college, we were playing in Providence, as well as going to Boston sometimes. And then on vacations going to Dallas, going to Los Angeles, and playing, sort of the coffee shops and also clubs. Right after college, we were already playing at the Bitter End with our band, or CBGB's, just real places we were playing. And then we would drive to Philly and play at the North Star. My friend Liz and I went our separate ways at a certain point, and she started her band Ida with her husband, as well as doing kids' music under the name of Elizabeth Mitchell, which is her name. But I was just playing everything from coffee shops to rock clubs, because that, just like I said, with my background, it was those were the different types of, I could play just with a guitar or with another instrument, and me playing guitar, and we'd do a little coffee shop type of thing. We didn't really play a lot of actual coffee shops. It was more like the coffee shop set up on stage, just acoustic shows, and or play full on band shows, depending on what the opportunity was.
What was it like for you to for your first time when you must have played when you played CBGB? You being a big music fan, it must have been just a pretty awesome feeling, because that place is legendary.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was, I think, just living in New York City and playing in these places, there was just a real energy about it. Something like CBGB's is very, it's a classic, iconic place, and it makes you feel like, wow, I'm making it. Like, this is happening. I'm actually taking the steps towards doing this. Like, I'm actually in New York City playing at a place that you play when you're on the way to making it. And then on top of that, there was just a general energy. Like, I played at this place called the Wetlands a lot, and other bands who were playing there. Now, in retrospect, it's funny, I'd play shows with Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler and Joan Osborne and Jeff Buckley. There was another club called Shanae that Jeff Buckley would play at a lot, or just a lot of the people who became professional musicians. We were all playing in these different places and overlapping in some areas. There's a place called the Lone Star Roadhouse. A lot of us played. We were all overlapping and all becoming professionals, developing our audiences and making music.
So it must have been a great thing. So now then your big break came with Stay, right?
Yes, that was around the same time. It was 1994. I recorded the song in 1993, graduated college in 90. My singing partner Liz and I went our separate ways, and I started doing some acoustic recordings so I could get familiar with myself singing my songs instead of somebody else singing my songs or songs we had written. And within a couple years, I was doing some demo deals for record companies, including the song Stay, which I had written. And Ethan Hawke was one of my friends and fans and friends, and he asked me for a copy of that song to give to Ben Stiller. And that was probably at the beginning of *93. So it was cool. It was pretty quick, actually. It seemed like it was taking forever, but it was actually kind of quick. And Ethan asked Ben to listen to it, and he really liked it and put it on the soundtrack for Reality Bites. And very quickly, by 1994, the song was on the radio. A radio station in Houston decided to start playing it as a single off the soundtrack. And then everything changed, It was amazing. It was like everything I had been doing, making demos, doing recordings, having my band, doing some touring, it all amped up really quickly. And so it was amazing to be, in the middle of a huge success like that, and also continuing to make a record and write songs and all that other stuff. It was a lot, but it was really exciting. It was something I felt like I was interested in doing since I was a kid. I don't know if I would have admitted it until probably freshman year in college, but when I look back, it was kind of what my life was pointing towards.
Now,
ever since I was a kid.
See, but that's perfect. But I always say, and I get this a lot from my guests, because I have a lot of actors and musicians, and everyone when they get that break, like yours was, Ethan had like your music, but what I try to tell people is, it's not like, oh, they just got the break and they didn't have talent. You were getting your chops, you were playing, you were out there doing it, and that's what I always tell people. It's like you get that break, but when you get that break, you better be ready, else it's. People are going to tell, and that's what seems you delivered. You had recorded the song, you were playing gigs, so it's not like, oh, who's this overnight success? And they say, well, you've been playing since you were a kid. You were playing piano as a little kid. You've been playing through high school,
I've been writing
college.
Since I was 6 years old. It was, it was something I'd been doing forever. But yeah, it was frustrating too at the beginning too. I was so lucky that Ethan directed the video for my song Stay, and one of the artistic decisions was that I was in a room telling the story to one person, which was the camera, but it was one take video, and in doing that, I ended up not playing my guitar, not having my band and my song with me. It looked like I was a pop singer walking around a loft, which I think made a strong artistic statement, and people really connected to that, and they still do. They still like to talk about the video and act it out for me when I see people in airports. But it also meant I was constantly having to defend myself, saying, no, I've been doing this forever.
Right.
I've been playing music forever. I've been recording since I was in high school. People couldn't believe that, they would call me a waif because I'm a small person. And I had a short dress and big shoes because that's how I roll with my feminism. And it was really strange to be put in a position where I was defending my artistic, my abilities and my craft and all that stuff. I was like, that's so weird. Like, I'm always the one who's the musician and the artist and the, sit in a room and make a song. And it's so weird that I'm having to explain that to people because I'm on the radio all of a sudden. All of a sudden it's almost like a negative thing being on the radio. But for me, it was also, I appreciated it still at the time as being a positive thing, even though I was put in a position to have to defend myself and say, no, really am a musician. I've been doing this forever,
What's it like when it starts breaking though? As in your psyche, you're sitting there and all of a sudden, as you said, you've always been a musician, but now your song's getting played all over the place. How does someone handle that? And then do you sit there and go, like, if you're driving and then your song comes on, would you turn it off or would you listen to it? And would you critique it saying, I could have done it this way? I always wonder how people do that. Like, after they hear it, they go, the final product, they go, you know what? After hearing it 67,000 times,
right.
I did it wrong.
I can imagine that, 10 years later, I listen to things and I'm like, yeah. But at the time, I'm a little quality controlled freak as well. And at the time, the people that I surrounded myself with, my band that I worked with, my producer who I worked with closely, Juan Patino, we were both, it's funny. I remember hearing somebody say that, what's his name from the Eagles? My brain, come on.
Don Henley?
Don Henley, in the studio, if he could, he would have put each piece of carpet down individually, each strand in the shag carpet, he would put down each strand individually. And I feel a little bit that way sometimes, especially when I was starting off. I'm such a quality control freak. Everything was just so thought out. It was such a combination of sort of what came out, which is the inspiration part, and then the craft of just being in the studio and trying to get everything exactly right. The music, the writing, the everything. And then on top of that, then you've got the artwork. And I'm like obsessed. We talked about the cover of my album Tales is kind of a pea green color. Oh my God, the record company thought I was crazy. I was like obsessed to get the right color and then to make sure the CD was the same color as the packaging. It was just a whole thing. So it was, I think when the song Stay became popular and all of a sudden my career just quickly started shooting through the roof in a more national way, it was really exciting to be in the middle of it. I think if I had been by myself sitting in a car and heard the song come on, I would listen to it. But I think what I was lucky was that I had a lot of really old friends and family and collaborators around me to share that experience with, because I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much or taken it in as much if I didn't have those people around me to say, hey, look, this is exciting, this is happening. Like, this is actually happening. To me, I was like being in the middle of a rocket ship blast. I was just going, and I was like, well, I'm driving the rocket ship. Like, let's go. Let's make more music. Let's record. There was always more work to be done. And I was in the middle of it, and that's what happens when you are a creative person. You're doing the thing. You're not on the outside just laying back and enjoying the, what's happening. You're actually still in it, having to make sure the rocket can still fly,
And it's got to be good for you just for the fact that, the record went gold. So now, yeah. you didn't have, when did you finally get a record deal? I mean, once the song...
I got a record deal while the song was number one in August of 94, which I know just because we just celebrated it going to number one. But it was while the song was on the charts, that's when I signed the deal. It was a great way. It was a great time to sign a record deal.
Oh, yeah.
It was frustrating because we didn't get the record out for another year because of our attention to detail, on top of actually promoting the song and being in the middle of the success of that song, and then trying to make a record at the same time. And also, I'm a business person, and part of being a musician is you work with a lot of people, and in that you really need to make sure your record deals are good and your publishing deals are good, and your legal work between you and your musicians that you work with is right, and the producers you work with, and the language is right. And that takes time, especially when you're trying to make a record and write songs and record songs at the same time. It's really important to have your ducks in a row on the business side. We read stories time and time again about people who weren't clear about their business arrangements, and it just, bites them in the ass later. So that was, there's a lot going on, and it took me another year to get a record out.
Now, how do you find out your record's like number one? Did someone call you? I always wonder, is there someone calls you and, hey, Lisa, it's number one? How do you find out officially? Is there a call made to you, or what happens?
Yeah, I don't know how anybody else gets it, but I was so fortunate that when my song was on the Reality Bites soundtrack, there was the pop radio promoter, the head pop radio promoter. His name is Skip Bishop. He was over at RCA Records, and I was so lucky to have him in my life. Now looking back, I don't think everybody has somebody like that. I was really lucky to have this guy who was a big champion of us, and he was very energetic and very, he had so much heart and so much energy and so fun and kind and funny. And he would call us every week and say, Lisa, and he has a southern accent. He's like, your song's going up the charts. It's on, it's number, I forgot the different numbers that it hit. But so he would always call me. It's like a couple days before or the night before. He already knows the chart position. He's like, all right, your song, and he would tell me, he'd say, your song, this is what it's doing. This is what it's doing this week. This is what it's doing next week. And this guy, Skip Bishop, he's still one of my dear friends. Like I just did a project with him recently, where we were both judges in a pilot for a songwriting TV show. But he was so great because he made the experience exciting, and he, again, like these experiences can go by so quickly without you even knowing. But he recognized how special it was, and he's still a big part of my life, and so I did get that call, and then we would go and get the Billboard magazine and look at it the next day or a couple days later when it came out. But I did have a guy calling me, actually telling me what was happening, and we would wait for his call,
That must have been such an amazing, you think about it, that's such an amazing feeling that, honestly, you have to sit there and feel very lucky for the fact that there's not a lot of people who get to feel that feeling. And that's what's awesome. And when you look and it's I remember the Billboard magazine, we used to look at that, and you always looked at the chart. You go into the record store and you'd see it and you go, oh, this album. And so that must have just been an amazing feeling. Now, how did it feel when you get nominated for a Grammy? I mean, that must have been...
Oh, that was really exciting too, yeah. I mean, because the Grammys, when I was a kid, that was something we would wait for all year for it to be on TV, and it was such a big deal. And I remember seeing like Fleetwood Mac get up with their afros and feathers in their hair, or Cher, or whoever my favorite singers, and Stevie Wonder, and just to be a part of something that was so iconic and meant a lot. And I think back then it even meant more because there were less award shows. Now there's an award show on every week, but it was a real stamp of approval. I mean, I know in general for awards there's all kinds of things behind the scenes, and with real perspective, it is very special, and I think people in the world still see it as like I said, a seal of approval. If you see something that's Grammy nominated, you might be more likely to buy it because you think maybe it's better than something else. That being said, I know lots and lots of music that has never been, acknowledged by the Grammy Association. But then that being said, I still do think it means something. But it was really exciting. Again, it was like playing at CBGB's. It was one of those things that seemed to be a stamp and a recognition of the fact that, wow, I am in the music industry and I'm doing this and this is happening. And existentialism, I exist, I'm here, No. And it was great for my parents to see that too, because they, as nice Jewish parents should be, they were concerned about my job and my career.
So after you hit your songs number one, you're making the record, did you feel pressure when you went into the studio to make that record? And also because, as you said, you're somewhat a perfectionist, that must have been hard because, you already have this song that's a hit. People know you. They want to hear more of you. You want to make sure the product's good. And you're still at a young age. I mean, how do you handle that success and sit there and put out a product that you probably, as you said, the colors for the album, you're going to go over the business decisions. How did you keep all the energy
I just
going?
did it. It was the same thing I had been doing for years. I'd been making records since I was in high school. I did recordings, and in college we had really detailed artwork and things like that. So it was just I felt like I had been doing it for so long that it was just a continuation of that. We did have a record company involved, but I had a lot of music industry friends who I had gotten kind of advice from, and the advice was in line with what my deep feelings were, which is I have to make a record that I like. We need to make this record. I wanted to make it as soon as possible, but I wanted to make it right. I don't know. It was just doing the same thing we'd always done, but it was just with more eyes on it, and a record company on it, and at the time, I think especially before all the social media, the record company was able to focus and help us a little bit more with the tasks of figuring out what we needed to do to get the artwork done, or get things done on time to come out at a certain point, and to be a team to figure out which music videos are we going to make, and that kind of thing. But in the meantime, we would just bunker down. We'd be in our bunker at the recording studio just making the record.
Now, with the videos, did you have creative input on that too, or was it mostly you having the director?
No, I'm like obsessed with everything. So, with the Stay video, which had come out a year before, Ethan had an idea, and it was a great idea, and we brought it to the record company, and they agreed. I think they probably agreed because he was a movie star, but it was actually the great part about that ended up being actually his idea, even more than him being a movie star. That was a good part of the story as well. But then after that, I'd have ideas, and then we'd look for big video directors to work with and talk about our ideas. For my song called Do You Sleep, my sister had an idea, so we involved her in the concept as well, coming up with the concept and then talking with the video director. And then I worked with a wardrobe person, and we had dresses made for the video that we worked on together conceptually. And then I literally would be sitting in the editing suite with the editors towards the end. I learned, I think, with mixing records that the best way to do that part is to let people mix the record, go out of the studio, come back in, listen, make about 1,000 notes, then let them work on the notes, and then come back in again and listen to sort of clear my palette creatively. And it's the same with editing. I know when we made the video for the song Do You Sleep, there was a little bit of the issue because Sophie Mueller, who was an amazing director who had worked with Courtney Love, and she works with Sade a lot, and she does these just beautiful, sparkling mysterious videos. It turned out, I didn't realize this until we were editing, she didn't like to edit on drum beats. She didn't like to edit on the beat. And my producer, ex-boyfriend, and I really liked videos edited on the beat that felt like they were in a rhythm.
Right.
And so that was sort of an issue, and I thought, oh, God. I mean, in retrospect, now if I were to make a video with her, I would let that go. Because I would realize, oh, that's her, part of her contribution. That's sort of how she feels the music, and she always makes beautiful videos. I need to let go of that, and let her do that. But that's sort of part of growing up, is realizing, like now when I make records, we make them more quickly. We're able to make really creative quality decisions much more quickly. And even with musicians, I was loyal to a fault with always wanting to use my own band. I don't want to use other people. I don't want to have studio musicians coming in. But I found out along the way that sometimes it is a good idea to have other musicians who might specialize in other types of style, or I love you. Sorry, I'm saying goodbye to my son. Bye, Bubba. Sometimes it is important to bring people in who have specialties, or let people do their thing. So, that's all part of the growing up creative process.
Now, how did the touring change then? Because you had the hit, and you had a following, but of course, when you have a number one hit, you have quite a bigger following, and you probably, when you do your set list before you can mix it up, but you have to stay every night. You probably had to close with it, because us people be like, "What we heard." I mean, where did you play it when it was number one, and when you started touring after that? Where in your set list rotation would you play that song?
That's funny. It's funny because once I had written that song, it became a song that everybody wanted to hear, even before it was on Reality Bites. So it was a surprise that it did so well, but it was also, I also sort of stroked my invisible beard thinking, interesting, like people really wanted to hear that song at my shows. I remember Tatum O'Neal always wanted to hear that song when she came to my shows. And so I used to play it just somewhere in the set. I'm always very aware of my set lists, because as somebody who went to a lot of concerts growing up, I like to feel that the set is peppered with the songs that feel more familiar. If you go see a local band a lot, there's certain songs you love, so you want to pepper the set with those songs so people feel like they're engaged. If there's a cover song you do, you want to put that in a strategic place. You don't want to play a bunch of slow songs in a row. You want to get their attention at the beginning, maybe with a more dramatic or faster song. So I had a whole thing about the pace of the songs. And it's funny because two things happened. One was, I remember the drummer in my band, John, who I'm still good friends with. We played at CBGB's after the song was on the radio, and he's like, we're going to play that song? I'm like, of course, we always play that song. Why would we not play it now that it's popular when we always used to play it? And people drove in from New Jersey to hear it. Like, come on, we have to play the song, of course. We'd be that'd be so tacky to not play the song. But I'm an audience member, so yes, we had new songs, and yes, we had other songs, but of course we had to play the song. But once the song got really popular, not only were we playing regular concerts, but they were also sort of promotional for the song and the record, and for us, it wasn't just your average show. And often we were playing radio festivals, because it was around the summertime, and there's a lot of radio festivals. And we realized that if we played the song too early in the set, I remember playing to a huge packed crowd somewhere, and we played the song Stay towards the beginning of the set, and then everybody left. They're like, we heard the song, goodbye.
That's
so I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, and again, that was like the positives and negatives of being on the radio. Everybody's there to hear the song. But as a real musician, I'm like, wait, what? People used to sit quietly listening to us play, like you could hear a pin drop. They were rapt, at every word, and now they just want to hear the one song. I'm like, seriously, guys? So we started putting the song much later in the set, even as an encore, so that people had to wait to hear it,
Well, I would also think that it's one of those songs that people will probably sing as you're playing it. I would think as a musician, that would be sort of irritating. You'd be like, hey, I'm a big Springsteen fan. He does a few songs where he has the people sing, but it's like, I would be like, wait a second, I want to sing this. I mean, did you ever sit there on stage and go, I want to sing this?
No, I mean, that happens every once in a while now when I'm playing, and I'm playing in intimate theaters or clubs, and people are pressed up against the stage and they're so excited. And I recently played a show that I think it was up in Canada, where the people were so nice and they knew every word, and it's really actually very welcoming and very, it makes you feel good as a musician because having had songs on the radio and knowing there are some people who know you for one song, it's fun when people know all the albums and every song that you play. But it was every once in a while during that set, the gal in the front row was singing so loud. A couple people were singing so loud in the front row I couldn't hear myself. And I don't think it was, I think it was hurting my performance actually, because I couldn't quite hear myself. But in those situations, it's amazing. Like I remember playing in Madison Square Garden, and they had a stage set up right in the middle. It was during a radio festival, and I was just out there with my guitar, and everybody in the place was singing every word, and it was just amazing. It was bizarre. You know, it's a very unique situation to be in.
Now I got to ask you about the glasses, because you're, you know, I'm a lifetime glasses wearer. So, you know,
oh, yeah.
And you made glass. I mean, it used to be. I mean, I'm 52. It used to be women didn't really wear glasses, and you go, well, why didn't you wear glasses? Right. And they go, I don't look. I mean, I've always thought women look great in glasses. I don't know why. I just always been. Did you always wear glasses, or did you go through a contact phase, or you just say, this is me. I'm wearing these glasses.
Yeah, you know, I did go through a contact phase in high school. Well, I started wearing them, I think it was 7th or 8th grade. One of my best friends, we were friends, our moms were friends when they were pregnant with us. That's how old of friends we were. We were born in the same hospital a month apart. My friend has worn glasses for way longer than I have. And so I always thought they were really cool. It was like, wow, she has glasses and she's getting her ears pierced. I can't wait till I get to wear glasses. And then I needed glasses. And she also started wearing contacts. And so I also wanted to wear contacts. You know, it's convenient, and you don't always get the best glasses selection. And I was a dancer growing up, so sometimes it's inconvenient to wear glasses. So I tried wearing contacts off and on through high school, but I always had very original, interesting glasses. It was the 80s, and I was always looking for something interesting. But I'm allergic to contacts. I got like little blisters in my eyelids. That sounds gross. But my eyes were dry, and so I couldn't really wear contacts regularly. I mean, you can kind of see, unfortunately, I think you can see better with contacts than you can with glasses, but my eyes they don't tolerate contacts well. I mean, I every once in a while I get new contacts now because I do some acting, and sometimes I don't wear my glasses in for auditions if I'm not going to play myself. So I want to have contacts, or when I go with my husband to an IMAX movie, 3D, where you have got the goggles on. They're hard to wear over glasses.
Oh yeah, I know.
But so yeah, I always had a positive association with glasses, and I always thought it was an interesting way to express yourself. And a lot of the musicians I listened to, like David Bowie, Elton John was famous for his glasses. You know, I don't know. I think there's a practical side of me that's just what I have to do, and that's what I do. And then it was funny because people used to ask me a lot about my glasses when I first started out after Stay, you know, after being in the public eye. And then that would frustrate me too, because not only was I defending myself as a musician, I was like, can we talk about music instead of talking about my glasses? But then I realized, you know, as time went on, like I said, oh, hello?
Yeah.
There were so many musicians that I loved for their style, but I also totally at the same time I was able to recognize that I loved their music. You know, I loved the Police, and they had all that bright blonde hair, especially at the beginning, but I liked their music. Or I loved that jacket Sting was wearing, or I loved Elton John's crazy outfits, but I loved his songs. So, right. You know, they can coexist.
Now, you started a glasses company, right?
Yeah, I did. Again, you know, it took years to finally realize, you know what, I'm going to embrace my love of glasses. It's sort of a hobby for me as well as something that I need. I love, you know, just like I used to love going to a music store and finding a cool looking guitar. I love glasses and cool glasses and interesting materials, and mostly I'm into glasses with interesting materials but that are flattering on my face. And a lot of other people always say, oh my God, I'm wearing Lisa Loeb glasses. And I look at them, and sometimes they are. Sometimes they're better than my glasses. Sometimes they're not really my glasses. And I realized, you know what, I want to do what I can to develop a line of glasses that are really flattering for a lot of different faces, that have that kind of heavy, slightly alternative, cool look, but they're flattering. They're not ugly alternative. They're interesting, but they focus on a person's face, not on their glasses on their face, you know? And so many people tell me that they wear their glasses because I wear glasses, and their daughter wears glasses because, you know, she didn't feel bad wearing her glasses because she saw me wearing my glasses. And, you know, it's amazing to be a role model, and I wanted to embrace that and embrace my love of glasses and start a line of glasses, which is called Lisa Loeb Eyewear.
You get a lot of stuff going. Now, how did you get into the children's music?
I had an opportunity early on, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, from Barnes & Noble. It was sort of when the music industry had really started changing, and we were looking for alternative ways to put records out other than major labels. And the idea of getting a record into a store by doing a record exclusively with a store was a really interesting idea. So when Barnes & Noble asked me to do something different from my regular records, I jumped at the chance. And there was certain music that I always loved and entertainment that I loved growing up from the 70s. I love that I get to talk about it because it's something that I love so much. But like the Muppets or Old Sesame Street from the 70s or Steve Martin, Donnie and Marie, Carol Burnett, Cosby before he went down the bad behavior drain. There was this whole set of comedy that had a lot of heart, that was very clever. It was entertainment for the whole family, but it had a grown-up sensibility, but still the silliness and a fun side and heart and storytelling. And I always wanted to do something like that. And for me, kids' music was one area to do it. There were a couple of kids' records I loved, especially growing up, like Free to Be You and Me, and Carole King's record. It's funny, I knew her kids' record better than her grown-up music, but her record called, where she did all of Maurice Sendek's words to her music. She made a record and called Really Rosie, and I always wanted to do something like that. I thought that'd be a really fun thing to do. My friend Elizabeth Mitchell from college had been making kids' records, so I asked her if she would help me out with it, and she produced it, and we put it out as a duo, and it was my first kids' record. And from there, I really ended up just continuing, but getting deeper into that initial inspiration, that kind of Free to Be You and Me feeling. I did a summer camp record called Camp Lisa with a lot of my favorite summer camp songs. I love summer camp. And again, it was like very silly, but very earnest and heartfelt. The production on it is just like a grown-up record. I even have Lee Sklar, who's a very famous bass player. He plays on it. And Jay Bellerose, who's an amazing drummer. We made that record, and that led to doing 2 illustrated kids books. And I've just really enjoyed that outlet for making music. It's influenced my grown-up music. I find that I'm more interested in telling different kinds of stories. I think also getting further and further away from having hit songs on the radio, you start to feel more freedom. And the more concerts I play, the more I realize what really connects with people and what I enjoy doing. And there's somewhere in there, the kids' music is even fun to play at grown-up shows. It's fun to take a break from love songs and sing a song about pancakes,
right.
Something with clever words, I think grown-ups enjoy that as well. They don't want to hear the same thing over and over again.
Now, do you ever play concerts for kids?
Mm-hmm.
And what's
I do.
that like?
I play. Oh, go ahead.
No, what's that like? It must be very cool, just because there's so much unbridled energy in the room, probably.
Well, it started off being a little disconcerting because as a grown-up person who plays grown-up concerts, people usually listen very quietly and they pay attention and they listen. So when I first started playing kids' concerts, it was before I had kids, and it was just a little crazy and a little bit mayhem, and they were songs that I hadn't been playing it for as long as I have my grown-up songs. I've been doing that for 20 years, but to play kids' music, it wasn't my thing exactly, and it was a little tough. But since then, it's actually become really, really fun. It feels a little bit like surfing and people throwing stuff at you. Not that they literally are, but the energy changes so quickly in the room, and the songs are very short. But it's fun. It's almost like doing a variety show. Kids come up and sing on stage with me. I play requests. Sometimes I play grown-up songs that some of the grown-ups want to hear. I ask kids for their favorite songs. It's actually been really fun. It's fun to connect with them. It has a much less serious feeling than some of my grown-up shows. Although my grown-up shows are pretty silly too. So I don't know. It's just a whole different world. Everything's shorter. The songs are shorter. The set is shorter. Attention spans are shorter. But I feel a real sense of accomplishment when I have connected with a huge group of kids and their parents, and we've had some singing, and I just feel like that there's just an amazing sense of connection, which, not to sound cliche, but we lose a lot of that with the phones and the internet. So when you actually have experiences with humans and humans of all ages, it's a really nice feeling. I like it.
Well, you seem like you have that good bridge with the kids, and you have your own foundation, right? Mm-hmm. And tell my listeners about that.
That's when I made the Camp Lisa record. One of the reasons to make it was because I love summer camp music, and again, summer camp is the pinnacle of silly, of serious, of arms around each other crying, but also singing songs about gross out stuff. So I wanted to share that experience, and when I really started thinking about it, it wasn't just the music, it's the whole experience of summer camp. And I wanted to share that with people and with kids. And I found an organization in New York called Scope, who helps find kids who are underprivileged, who wouldn't typically get to go to summer camp and have that experience. And not only that, but they go even in further. They have summer camps they work with, which really help instill great values and leadership and being part of a community, all under the auspices of just being at summer camp. So I really wanted to send kids there to these different summer camps. So I started the Camp Lisa Foundation. All the proceeds from my Camp Lisa record, go to send kids to summer camp. I have a coffee brand called the Wake Up Blend through Coffee Fool, which is a website, Coffee Fool. They've done a blend of coffee beans for me, and all the sales of that coffee sends kids to camp. And people can just donate directly to send kids to camp. I'd love to do more with that. I have to actually figure out how to do more with my Summer Camp Foundation, because I don't have my own camp, but I just think it's so great to plug into these camps that give kids an experience of a lifetime that really changed their whole life.
And you do remember camp. I remember in South Jersey, the camp was, it was Mount Misery. It was one of the camps, and I was like, I don't know if someone gave it that nickname, and you would go and you would take the bus. We would take the bus down there, and then you would meet kids who, I'm from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Well, I would meet kids from different areas. So it'd be just like in Cherry Hill, in all honesty, back then was just very, very, very white. And so you could meet kids from Willingboro, which was more, which was more African Americans, and you got to meet all different kinds of kids, and it was a great time. Even though I went only for a few years. It's a valuable learning experience.
Yeah, it is, because we spend a lot of time. My family's very school oriented, and school's always a very big value. Doing well in school, doing your homework, but even it's kind of a grind. I think I was talking to my mom about this. I think a lot of the grind element was brought on by ourselves. Just as kids, my family, we all had high expectations of ourselves, and then the school expected a lot. And so to reach those expectations, it was really intense. So to be at summer camp where the intensity comes from spending time with people, like trying things that you're a little scared to do, maybe jump in a lake or water ski or, get up on stage for the first time, that where there's a little more space around it and more freedom and less sort of feeling like the grown-ups are there all the time. I think that's just such an amazing experience. It really makes it helps kids with their self-confidence, and it just has much more of an impact sometimes than learning calculus,
Right. Now you wrote a play about camp, right?
Yeah, well I collaborated on the music with my friends Michelle Lewis and Dan Petty, who are my music collaborators on a lot of my kids' music, at least at that time. And we wrote the music, and then Kuzi Cram and Peter Hirsch, who are award-winning grown-up and kids writers, wrote the book. And it opened in Miami, and then it opened in New York City. And we really want to get it on the road. It is a classic story of a girl who goes to camp and a couple of other kids who go to camp for the first time, and their experience and their rivalry with the fancy camp across the lake. But it's funny, we went to a number of the performances in New York when they were doing that at the Atlantic Theater, I think last spring, and the parents who were there were tearing up, and the kids were really engaged. And again, it was one of those things where we really hit the nail on the head as far as creating entertainment that is quality, that feels really top notch. It's not for kids, it's for people, it's for families. And I'd love to send it on the road and see different theater companies perform it to bring out the different aspects of the play.
That'd be great. Now, are you still touring a lot? I know you're going to be in you're going to be in the Philadelphia area on this Saturday over out there in Haverford.
Yes.
Havertown, actually.
Is it Havertown? I keep saying Haverford too.
It's a Haverford Musical Festival, and it's Havertown, Pennsylvania. It's
okay.
It's
well, there
all.
You go. That's why it's confusing.
I know the area.
So yeah, I do tour a lot. It's funny. I played a different show outside of Philly towards the beginning of the summer, and it was more of a grown-up family show. But so many kids ended up climbing on stage that I did almost like a pop-up kids show in the middle of my grown-up show. All of a sudden, we did like a 40-minute kids set that was really fun, and then the kids had to get off the stage because it was a hazard. And then I continued on as it got darker at night. I continued on with my grown-up songs. So, yeah, I do tour mostly more weekends than weekdays because I've got 2 young kids in school. And I've got a bunch of other projects going on. But, you know, I'm just like a lot of other working parents. I'm always trying to figure out how to spend the most time with my family and do my work so that it's satisfying to me and I'm doing a good job at it, but not taking away from the family. But being able to support the family. And it's funny too, because now that I should be spending more time at home, I actually really enjoy playing concerts. Again, it's something that it is almost like being at camp. There's a lot of laughs and a lot of, serious moments and connecting with people. It's a pretty great job.
Now, what are some of the other projects you're working on?
I have a new record coming out in the fall called Feel What You Feel. It's coming out in October. Pre-release is this weekend, actually.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about it. I think it's the first record that really, it's for kids, but it's sort of not for kids if you listen to it. You got to check it out. I do a couple of duets with Craig Robinson from the TV show The Office, right, and Mr. Robot and a bunch of other stuff. Craig and I have always wanted to perform together and to sing together. Every time we meet each other, we start singing to each other. It's very funny. And finally, we were working on a song called Feel What You Feel, which is a disco funk jam. And I was thinking, gosh, this sounds good, but it sounds like it's a companion piece to another song. What would make the perfect companion piece to Feel What You Feel? And then I realized I'm always talking about Free to Be You and Me. And there's this great song that Rosie Greer sings called It's All Right to Cry. It's All Right to Cry. I thought, oh my God, Craig and I have to do that song as a duet. And so Craig came and we did a duet of that song, and then he also sings the Disco Funk Jam with me, which is just like a big party. And anyway, this record's coming out. The pre-release is this weekend on Amazon exclusively, which is where I put my Nursery Rhymes record out on. But this is something I think that grown-ups as well as kids will really want to hear, especially if you're sentimental at all about the 70s and the 80s. It's definitely for you. So that record's coming out this weekend, the pre-release, and officially in October. And then also I've just been making music for TV shows for kids, doing a lot of voiceover work, touring, and a couple other things.
Now, will you play any of those new songs in Havertown this weekend?
I should. I should probably get it together to try to play a couple of those songs. I need to relearn them. I wrote way too many lyrics for a lot of the songs, but I should. That should be a goal of mine to work on, because I sort of have them in my head. We've been recording and mixing and mastering for a while, so we're just about to make some videos for the songs as well. So I should play a couple of the songs, and you can hear for yourself that they're not just for kids.
See, that's good, because it's like, well, you talk about that, and look, like when the Flintstones came out, that was for adults, but kids watched it. We all watched it as kids.
Yeah,
because it was, you sat there, and for the kids, we watched the cartoon content, because cartoons were different. Back then, you used to Bugs Bunny and stuff like that, but it had adult content, and the kids, and it's great because like something like you're doing, kids and their parents can listen together. It's not like it's like it's not like sitting there going, oh, I don't want to listen to mom's music, or oh, I don't want to listen to my kids' music. It's you're hitting both markets, and that's a brilliant idea.
Right. I mean, and you don't get into my daughter, who's 6.5, has really gotten into a lot of the pop music. So I've been listening to Katy Perry and whatever's really popular on the radio. Which I hadn't done. I've always been sort of an alternative kid. So to hear these like majorly pop songs, which it's pretty amazing, the production quality of these things. But what we're making, and I'm making with my collaborators, is it's not that. It gives you more of the feeling of, I'd like to teach the world to sing. And I think for some grown-ups too, I think it's important because it brings you down to a human level of energy, which is this deep level. When you hear songs, there's a song on the record called I Was Here, and it really is respecting your life on this earth, the small things, the things that make, and when you listen to the song, it'll make you start thinking about your childhood or maybe a little older, but details that were important to you in your life. And I think it's important to have that kind of introspection, whether it's fun or quiet, have some kind of introspection. And I think these songs on my new record bring that out of the listener.
Well, that's awesome. So that drops pre-release this weekend. Now, how can people follow you, get in touch with you? Give all your Instagram or your Twitter. Give that to the listeners. My
Instagram is Lisa Loeb, LisaLoeb. My Twitter is Lisa Loeb. My Facebook is official Lisa Loeb. It's very, very easy. And Pinterest, Lisa Loeb. So you can check it all out. And I'm pretty active on there. Again, always trying to find the balance between letting people get some information and seeing what I see through my eyes, but at the same time, me having time to have a life and not sit on my phone all the time. Well, yeah, it's really cool. You should check it out.
I will. And I like your website, lisaloeb.com. And I want to thank you for coming on. This was fun. I'm glad we got to get this interview in.
Yeah, me too. Lots of memories and lots of new things happening.
So people, follow Lisa. Follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk. That's at Cooper Talk. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. I think I have 550 episodes up there. You can email me, Cooper at coopertalk.net. And on my other website, remember when I had my health problem, go to stopthesalt.com. It's 120 low-sodium recipes. It's cooking for one. It's easy. There's no pictures to intimidate you, and there's no long lists of ingredients. Like if you don't have cumin, don't worry. There's no recipes with cumin. You can get it at Barnes & Noble .com. You can get it at Amazon.com. But if you go to stopthesalt.com, I make more money. And I'll sign it. So do that. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Cooper Talk 1, Words with Friend, Cooper Talk 1. And also check out my new sponsor, Blowfish for Hangovers. Go to forhangovers.com and type in the word Cooper, Cooper, and you get 20% off. So keep listening. Go to Amazon. Pre-order Lisa's new album. Go buy her old albums. Buy her books. Buy everything you see by Lisa Loeb on Amazon, okay? Because it'll make you happy. So anyway, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I will talk to you guys next week. All right.